Purple Daily is daily Vikings entertainment. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die.
I will ride with this group.
Seriously, man. Please.
And away we go.
We do go with Purple Access. It's Judd, it is Ross Brendel, and it is Tyler Forness, our friend from the Sporting News, covers the Vikings and the league for the Sporting News, sportingnews.com. And also you can find his YouTube channel, First and Skol, which has awesome Vikings content as well. And currently, if you go and check out what Tyler has at the Sporting News, he has a preview of the Vikings rookie camp coming up this weekend. It starts on Friday. J.J. McCarthy's first time to get on the field at TCO Performance Center. All right, Forno, what tickles your fancy, personal question, about the rookie camp coming up for the Vikings and what truly has been and is one of the most intriguing off seasons for this franchise in recent memory as the train goes by?
Choo, 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 Judd.
Yep, exactly. That's Kevin O'Connell's going. There's J.J. McCarthy, train. He's on the train as well.
Yeah, I can just see J.J. McCarthy going out and buying you remember in like the late 90s, I mean, I was a kid. They used to have almost like stuffed dolls of like football players. I can see him going and buying a Packer one and tying it right to the front of that train and just that.
Oh God, you know how popular he would be if he did that here?
He did say, I believe in one of his interviews, one of the first things he's going to buy is a truck. And I hope he ends up putting one of those on that grill. But
I love how you think.
One of the biggest things about rookie minicamp, it's about hope. It's about seeing these guys for the first time. And you can't take things incredibly serious. If somebody's an adjunct disaster, maybe you should be worried a little bit. If somebody's like, wow, that dude's a player, then maybe you can get a little extra excited. But it's not a normal style practice. They're going to do some 7-on-7 stuff. They're going to do drills, but it's mainly get your feet wet. Let's see how you look during an NFL practice. It's an acclimation process. So there isn't a whole lot you can look for, but what I want to look for is little things. I want to look and see, how is Dallas Turner moving? Because Brian Flores ended up comparing him to Dante Hightower, also from Alabama. And that was the comparison that Nick Saban used too. So I think that in itself is very interesting. Hightower was like a hybrid linebacker edge rusher, and I think that's the way Dallas Turner is going to end up being used. His movement skills are incredible, especially how he can flip his hips and end up changing his direction to cover a running back and stick with them because he has that 4.47 speed. Those things are going to matter. And the versatility that Hightower had, being able to rush the passer, being a great blitzer, being able to drop, I think you're going to see a lot of that with Turner. I want to see how he moves on the field. I want to see J.J. McCarthy, how comfortable he is, how poised he is with this new environment. Is he going to own the room by the end of the weekend? Because that's another thing. You can't take a ton from these, but you can look at growth and you can see how comfortable was he the second he got on the practice field. Was he a little overwhelmed? Or was he really comfortable? Was he somewhere in between? And then compare it to how he looked when he left practice for the final time during rookie minicamp. What was the change? How did he grow? How did he develop during that time? How much more comfortable and relaxed was he on the practice field? That's going to tell you a lot about how you can potentially project him going forward. How is he going to be during minicamp? How is he going to be during mandatory minicamp? How is he going to be during training camp? Are you going to see some of that same general progression? And I think those things you can glean from him. I want to see Kyrie Jackson. How are they going to use him? Are they going to put him in the slot? Are they going to put him on the outside? Are they going to have him be kind of a float around hybrid guy? Like what's the idea with Kyrie Jackson? I think his best bet is probably to play on the outside because of his size and length, but he also has the athleticism to be able to do a little bit of everything. I want to see Levi Drake Rodriguez. Like, he was Prospect X, Kaylin Kaler's series for The Athletic every year, where she dives in and tells the story of a really interesting and unique prospect, usually a late day 3 guy. And that was Levi Drake Rodriguez this year. And his athleticism pops. And what's funny about him, his best tape was against his best competition. I watched a few games of him, and he played one FCS or FBS team this past year, Old Dominion, played really well at the Tropical Bowl. So I think those things matter, but I don't see how the athleticism pops. And then Gabriel Murphy. How deficient is that arm length going to be when you're facing NFL competition? How are they going to use him? Is that athleticism enough to overcome some of those things? I think it is, but I do think he's got to be used in specific ways, and Brian Flores can do that. But you're looking, we kind of wrap this point up, you're looking for little things. You're looking for stuff that will translate. You're looking for how they move, how they act, how comfortable they are in the setting, and how they grow. There's really not a lot else you can gain from it. You're not going to be like, oh, this guy can read this coverage and hit this dig route consistently every time. That's not what these practices are for. That's what training camp is for. So I want to see growth, progression, and comfortability, basically, as well as seeing all these other rookies and draft picks come in and get on the field for the first time.
I think what I'm most looking forward to, boys, are things that have a lot to do with football, but not necessarily the game on the field. I'm looking forward specifically when it comes to J.J. McCarthy and Dallas Turner. I'm looking forward to just more access to these guys, more cameras in front of them, more reporters. I want to see, to your point, Tyler, maybe J.J. McCarthy doesn't have a great day. What does he say afterwards? What are maybe some of those leadership buzzwords and things that he uses? What is Dallas Turner like? We've seen a little bit less from him on Viking social than we have on J.J. McCarthy, I think for obvious reasons. But I'm looking forward to getting to learn more about the players and what they bring to the team that has those leadership things, those intangible things, the personality things. And this will really be, since the draft and the process leading up to the draft, this is the first chance we're going to get to see that. And obviously, I want them to perform well and look good and look competent. But I think that's as big of a deal. How are they going to fit in the locker room? How are they going to fit in the community? Are fans going to rally around them? I'm excited to start to see the evolution of that with those players in a Minnesota Vikings uniform.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the benefits that Judd's going to have, because I know he skipped a doctor's appointment in order to go to rookie minicamp this Friday.
I'm not going to skip it. I just backed it up a little bit.
Listen,
you're a player, Judd.
For the Vikings.
Listen, as somebody who probably should have went to the doctor about a week sooner with my appendix, I applaud your efforts. And
the procedure's done in this case. I'm just going in for a checkup for the procedure.
Oh, well, then who cares? You're fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, who needs that? Skip it.
Nah. Well, don't skip it. Go, but you don't have, it's okay if you wait a couple days. But anyways, enough medical stuff. That's not why we're here. I think the benefit you're going to have versus myself, because I don't have the access yet, is you're going to be able to see a lot of that stuff up close. You're going to be able to see the coaching. You're going to be able to see the intangibles. You're going to be able to see that level of comfort and how things adapt and adjust for each individual person. And I think that's a really big thing when you're talking about rookie minicamp, because you're not going to see a ton of stuff. Yeah, you're going to get a few highlights. Those highlights are going to be pretty cool, but you're not going to get to see a lot of the little things that you really want to get from something like rookie minicamp. And I think being there is going to be such a massive benefit to understanding those concepts, those attributes, that comfortability.
And I would say a fair way to characterize this is that this camp, which there is going to be 1 day of access for us to, so it's 3 days probably total, but 1 day of access. What makes this intriguing from our perspective, and thus the fans, is it's an appetizer for the off-season workout program, which also has certain OTAs that are open to us, not all for sure, and then concludes with the 3 day, which is usually cut down to 2 days now, mandatory mini camp in June. And what I'm curious to see in full as these things unfold, Tyler, is this. A year ago, it, for instance, became very clear during the OTAs to start with how Josh Metellus was going to be used. Like I'm watching the practices and I'm like, why is Josh Metellus playing so much? And then I start to look where he's being used, and I'm like, not only is he playing a ton, he's being used as a hybrid, right? I think one of the most interesting things I have, I guess, for the coming weeks here through June is this one too. What is the progression, maturation, thought process with McCarthy going to be as far as a developmental standpoint? Because, I fully expect that the Vikings are going to come into this, Tyler, with a plan. I fully expect it's going to be a smart plan. Kevin O'Connell, in some ways, has lived for a long time now for this opportunity, for this moment. He did a really nice job with Kirk, but Kirk had been in the league a long time. So among the things, and I think there's a bunch of storylines that will develop, among the things I'm most curious to see is just starting with this weekend, what's the approach to McCarthy? And does that approach jibe with what we're expecting or slightly different as far as, is there an attempt to progress him quicker than I expect right now? Do they slow it down more so? I go back to what I said, which is I think this is one of the most interesting off seasons in recent memory for the Vikings, because I think that there is a lot to be gleaned here.
So we don't know McCarthy on a personal level. We don't know him on a professional level. We know him from the outside looking in.
Correct.
And I think if you're trying to look at it from the Minnesota Vikings perspective, you want to see if you can challenge him a little bit this week. You want to see, okay, let's say McCarthy reads at like a 12th grade reading level. Like, just use that as a hypothetical, because that's a benchmark that a lot of people in like the academic community use. Well, what's their reading level? Okay. Say he reads at a 12th grade level. He's probably reads a lot higher than that, but just humor me here.
I'll play along.
So challenge him with the idea of, okay, we're going to give you all the stuff at the 12th grade reading level, but we're going to challenge you at like a 13th and 14th, which would be like freshman, sophomore year of college. All right. So we're going to challenge you a little bit. How are you going to handle that? How are you going to react? How are you going to be able to absorb that information? Is this going to be too much of a challenge for you? And I think understanding what you can and can't do with an individual, and we've talked about it before, like some players can handle failure really well. Some can't, and it ends up crushing their career. What kind of a person is McCarthy? Is he going to be able to be the one to handle failure? Remember, he's 63-3 as a starting quarterback. It's not like he's lost a lot of games or has experience losing.
And he's 21.
Yeah. So how are you going to be able to get that point across? How are you going to be able to challenge him without putting too much on his plate or having him fail? And I think that's going to be a really delicate challenge. And you know what? It may not be delicate at all. It may be, this guy, we could throw him stuff at like a 16th or 17th grade reading level, and he's just fine. Like, I think that matters. And I think that maturation process and how mature he is already and how those interactions have already gone with him are going to go a long way to determine how much they can challenge him right away. Nothing about McCarthy would shock me where, Sam Darnold just balls out. We'll just give McCarthy a true redshirt year. That's fine. It's not that big of a deal. I mean, this is about the long haul. It's not about this year anyways. Or be like, this guy's just ready. I'm not going to screw around. Yep. He can go right now. When we're just going to start him from week 1 and just go. And anywhere in between, I think would be fine too, where, it's week 8. Let's put him out there. I think he's ready. Like, nothing would surprise me because of who he is, what he's done, and what he projects to do.
My hunch is, gentlemen, and the Vikings were probably well aware of this and made it part of their calculus in selecting him. I got a pretty good feeling they know how he's going to respond to failure or quote unquote, if you just want to talk about winning and losing games. I think they know that will fuel him and hopefully make him a better player. Now, nobody wants to lose games, but the reality is, to your point, Tyler, he's not going to go 63-3 over a 66-game stretch in the NFL. If he does, well, we can finally plan that parade. But I think the Vikings will be looking for, okay, to your point, Tyler, how does he respond when he throws a bad pick? And maybe that's what happens here in minicamp. How does he respond when he misses a read? How does he respond to success? Does he follow that up with more success? I think the Vikings know those answers or think they know those answers, but they'll start to see them actually in fruition with their own eyes wearing a Vikings uniform. And I think that is what's exciting to Vikings fans at this point.
Absolutely. And I think that it was either a scout or a former coach, or maybe it was a player that said this. Sometimes you just know within 5 minutes of a practice, you know if this guy's going to be great, if he's going to be terrible. And it's truly amazing how that can happen. I was also told by somebody who works a lot in football and has done a ton of film grinding. You watch 5 plays. If you watch 5 plays of a guy, you can get a general sense of what they are. Is this guy going to be worth my time, or is this guy not worth it at all? Yep. And especially when you talk about recruiting, that's unfortunately the science of a process like that, because you just don't have time to watch 3 games of every single recruit. You just don't. If this guy pops off in 5 plays, then I'm going to spend a little more time on him. If he doesn't, I got to move on. So I think when you're talking about something like this, it's going to be it's going to be relatively similar. If McCarthy just looks like an abject disaster right away, then maybe it's time okay, maybe we should panic just a little bit. And maybe it's something where hey, we just didn't know. And all of a sudden he's a disaster. Maybe within 3 plays, he's just throwing tight window bombs down the field. It's okay, we got something here. This guy could be really special. These first practices, as much as they don't matter, they do, because first impressions mean so much. And first impressions can shape the rest of your career. It can shape the tone around your public perception. It can shape the tone around what your teammates and coaching staff feels about you, because as much as they think they know, it's amazing, because when it comes to the NFL draft, you really don't know. And I'm fascinated to see how everything works out for McCarthy. I'm fascinated to see how things progress with McCarthy. But at the end of the day, I think he does need to make a good first impression, just to at least for the ease the ponder PTSD within the Vikings fan base.
First practice. In fact, he missed, shockingly, rookie camp in 2009 because Percy got a migraine in Atlanta, threw up, and was taken away by ambulance and didn't make it. But I'll never forget the first time that Percy Harvin got on the field at Winter Park with the veterans. First 2 plays, you're this guy this is one of the best players on this team right now. And it's a guy that never played a down of pro football in his life. So you are exactly right. We are going to get to comments from YouTube, but before we do that, we're going to shout out our friends. I got the hat on right here. Ugly Deck, uglydeck.com. Because springtime means one thing. It means deck time. A new deck from our friends at uglydeck.com. Install or DIY, uglydeck.com, offering up to $1,000 off for a limited time. With install, which is what I need, you get the best carpenters who are going to give you a gorgeous deck. With DIY, you get the best coaches who are going to help you get the project done from start to finish. Ugly Deck is on a mission that is very simple: to rid the world of ugly decks. uglydeck.com. Setting appointments now at their Shakopee Deck Design Showroom. Check out uglydeck.com. Uglydeck.com is going to give you a gorgeous deck. And now it's time for comments from YouTube.
You commented, we read it.
Is this a ransom note?
Now we're talking about it. It's Purple Access's comments from YouTube.
All right, boys, 2 for you today. 1 serious and 1 fun. At least I'll classify it as fun. We'll start with the serious. T. Kubler, 9561, says in part, Harrison Smith is not still playing at an elite level and should have retired. Harsh. Question: what are the realistic expectations in 2024 for the 6-time Pro Bowler and 1-time All-Pro? Judd?
Well, first of all, Tyler can confirm if what I'm about to say is correct, but I do think his PFF grades did drop off. So yeah,
they dropped, but he's 35. That's fine.
Exactly. And you know what? He's coming back at a discount again. I think he is such a stabilizing force. And you know what? Their safety position's good. Bynum's good. Metellus in his roles has been good. So should he have retired? Do I think he's done and that he can't play? No. I think he definitely brings something. Are we going to see a lot of we did 3 sack days in Carolina in 2024? No, we didn't see a lot of those days in 23. The realistic expectation, though, I think is simple. He is an effective enough player, but most importantly, he is a coach on the field.
Bingo.
And I found it to be objectionable and borderline disrespectful that Ed Donatel dropped him into a shell for a year and said, hey, just stay back there. And, Harrison Smith, his ability to help guys set where they are, to move people around, to move himself around, I think is still of value at this current price. I would not have paid him what he was due to make. The Vikings aren't. So I think if you get another year of a guy who is a coach on the field, who pops up and makes some plays, but if you're not expecting the Hitman Harry act from 10 years ago, I think you're probably pretty pleased with what you're getting. And I think there's no question O'Connell and Flores both continue to love this guy.
I think
anything to add, Tyler?
Yeah, for me, he doesn't have to be elite. You're not paying him to be elite.
Right.
He's a good, solid football player who is not a deterrent on your defense. He is not a liability. And is he going to make those same plays as Judd alluded to? No, he's not going to. And you know what? That's fine, because he's going to be a solid piece. He's going to construct your defense. He's going to help get people in position and be like Judd said, a coach on the field. I still think you can use him in blitzes. I still think he's capable enough playing at all three levels of the field. But because of his age, you don't necessarily have to rely on him to be Superman. Like a lot of times, free safeties, one term that was used for Florida NFL and Florida Gator safety Reggie Nelson was he was the eraser. Anytime something happened down the field, he was there to erase it. And I think fans may still have a little bit of that image of Harrison Smith where he's the fixer. And he's just not, and that's okay. He's also not being paid like it either. He's being paid like a guy who's still playing at a good level, and maybe he's making a little bit of extra cash just because he's done so much for this franchise. But at the end of the day, I think it's fine. I think it's also fair to say, hey, maybe we should have moved on from him and just completely cut him and saved that little extra cap space. I think that's a fair argument, but I don't think that just because he's not playing at elite level means he should have retired. I think he's still got plenty in the tank. For him, it sounds like, and just by listening to his comments, does he want it anymore? Does he want to keep playing? And it seems like by the contract he signed, he wants to play one more year and call it quits. Mm-hmm. So we'll see how that happens. But I think it's fine to have back there. Just you can't view him like you did in 2017. You got to view him with a modern day lens. And then I think you're pretty happy with that if you change your perception of him.
My 3 cents for whatever it's worth. I'm also okay with it because realistically, you're not winning a Super Bowl this year. So if he can help the development of other players on the defensive side of the ball and still be an asset, get his money and ride off into the sunset, I'm all for that. Comment number 2 comes from ADub815 in response to the roast of Tom Brady. He says, in part, Adrian Peterson would be so easy to roast.
Oh my
Judd, I know you guys spent a little bit of time on this on the flagship of Purple Daily, but the question here, and I guess, Judd, I'll let you start again. What current or former Minnesota Vikings player would you most like to see roasted on Netflix or a special that we all have access to see?
Oh, boy. Now Phil suggested Cousins, and I suggested that Kirk would start crying so it wouldn't be fun because he couldn't take it. Do you know who would be? So we did talk about this on the flagship. Do you know who would be fun now that I have given it more thought, or might be fun? Mike Zimmer.
Who?
Mike Zimmer.
Oh, yeah. I think he'd have fun with it too.
Now there would be a line you couldn't cross there. There would be a line you couldn't cross for sure, and I'm not joking.
Is it Norv Turner?
Well, because of Norv Turner, but I mean his personal life too has been some really sad stuff there. His wife and son, so you have to be very careful there. But I think just from a football standpoint, no, I think Norv, you could definitely bring up Norv. But I think that might be a good one. Forno, who do you think?
Man, if he was still alive, I would love a roast of Dennis Green. I think that could give you some really, really interesting tidbits, especially if you consider the Warren Sapp stuff. If you consider, how that impacted like Randy Moss, how he dealt with characters. I also think John Randall would be phenomenal because he seems to me like a pretty clean cut kind of guy off the field. But man, I bet there was some on-field stuff that you could really have some fun with.
I love it.
Brett Favre would be an absolute disaster. He may get indicted just from the roast.
Well, and that's a league roast, though. Like, that's not a Viking thing. That would be a league. That's a lifetime achievement roast from the Packers to the Jets. Oh, my God.
Jared Allen would be fun.
Yep.
He'd have fun with it, too. And it would all roll. How's that go? Water off a duck's back. I don't think he would welcome it. Years ago, Tyler, on the Denny Green front, This must have been, well, what, 99, 2000? What year was Jeff George here, Judd?
99.
Okay, young Ross Brendel is at training camp, and Jeff George is slinging the ball around before practice, and Denny Green walks onto the field, and Jeff George starts to walk over him, and I'm kind of leaning up on the fence down there in Mankato, and all you hear come from Denny Green is Jeff George approaches him. Not in the mood today, Jeff. Not in the mood. And just keeps walking.
Denny was the greatest.
How
about McNabb or Ponder? Ponder would be great because his wife couldn't stand it, and I know that's a little bit mean.
No.
McNabb would be hilarious because of chunky soup, throwing up during the Super Bowl.
That's a Philadelphia roast, though.
It was a very quick run here.
Yeah, that's not us.
Did you guys watch the Tom Brady roast?
I watched a bunch of the clips.
Nikki Glazer might have had the best joke of all time. Asking Tom, how did you lose $30 million in crypto?
Yeah.
Even Gronk was like, me know that, not real money.
Yeah.
And just might be the greatest joke I've ever seen. Just
there was some unbelievable. There was some really. It cut deep, but it was funny as hell.
Oh yeah.
Do you notice?
Phenomenal.
Do you notice, Tyler? Since I think I watched it, didn't necessarily love it, but I did watch it. I did find the part that was most interesting to me was he kind of let all the roasting of his family go, but then got upset at Bob Kraft. I'm like, well, shouldn't you kind of be protecting your family a little bit too? Or was that a planned?
Apparently, they were all told before the roast that Bob Kraft was off limits. And
Bob Kraft wasn't going to show up, and then he decided to, and they said, okay, we can't do that.
Yeah. That was like an agreed upon thing. Like Brady doesn't really have control. You agree to be roasted, nothing's off limits. But
correct.
Like, don't talk about Bob Kraft.
Yep.
That's the deal, and that's why he got mad about it. So I think perception wise, I can completely understand. Hey, he got mad about Bob Kraft, but not about his family. Well, look, at the end of the day, you're divorced, and the joke about like Tom Brady having 8 rings because Giselle gave hers back, I thought was absolutely phenomenal. But
it was well done.
If everybody agrees to not do it and then you do it, you're just a jackass.
And
simple.
Glazer said that Kraft agreed to show up late, and so they agreed not to go after Kraft. It was, and they wanted to. So as part of the attraction, it was to actually get Kraft and Belichick in the same room, which was difficult. The other thing is, she also said that they all agreed. The comedians agreed that Brady's kids wouldn't be mentioned.
Yep, that's fair.
It's like there was the odd kiss with his son that one time, and they're all like, we can't do that. So yeah, I think that shockingly, Jeff Ross violated the spirit of the roast. I know you guys are going to be surprised
there because he's that kind of guy. He's kind of scummy, but
he's at every roast, right? Like if Jeff Ross does not attend, it's not a roast.
He's king of the roasts.
Yes.
I remember watching the roast of Bob Saget, which not safe for work on many levels, but like just incredible stuff. These roasts, like comedians you've never heard of except for roast. Gosh, they're so good.
If you liked it and it made you uncomfortable, go find the Aristocrats from 2000 and what year?
Early 2000s. Yeah. Maybe it's me, or maybe it is mid, but that's a great flick.
It is. I literally had people in the theater. I've never seen that amount of people walk out. They were so uncomfortable. And the best one was the late now Bob Saget, who was known at the time for Full House, right? The Full House dad, telling one of the most crude versions of the joke possible. So anyway.
Also, another hot tip on Bob Saget, since we're there, Farce of the Penguins. A great watch too. It's a rip, obviously, and spoof on March of the Penguins, which I do believe includes like half the members of Full House playing penguins. So it's pretty funny. Wow. You guys should check that out. Farce of the Penguins.
I'll never forget the first time I heard Bob Saget do comedy. I'm like, this is Danny Tanner. I feel like my life is ruined.
I've been so betrayed.
He was foul-mouthed as they possibly can. All right, let's put a bow on the show, Roscoe.
These extra points never miss. It's Purple Access's Extra Points.
Gentlemen, I'll just get mine out of the way right away. I think within 7 years, the NFL draft will be held in London or Mexico City. They're going to take it international at some point. London makes the most sense. That's going to be a heck of an ask, but it will be done at some point. There's no reason it won't be. They already play 15 games there a season at this point. So the NFL draft, if I had to guess, will be in London. Heck, maybe it could even be in Canada, but they will take this thing outside of the continental U.S., or I guess technically you can say Hawaii and Alaska in that. It will leave the U.S. within 7 years. It will be held somewhere else for at least a year. That is my extra point.
Go ahead, Tyler.
I think people need to get off Kwesi Opamensa's back a little bit about these comp picks. It's here's the thing. I mean, we talked about this a lot on the Real Forno show Wednesday night. With comp picks, you have a general formula and you think you know, but you don't. And I think the reason why people are blaming the Shaq Griffin signing for losing a comp pick is because it happened in chronological order. But that's not exactly how it works, per se. Like, they might not even ever gotten a second, third round comp pick. And Ben Gessling said as much. And we know that Gessling got it directly from the Minnesota Vikings, which, you know, if they didn't think they were getting one, I think there's merit to that, especially when it comes to how everything breaks down. And that's what we talked about on the Real Forno show. There's so many layers to the comp pick process. And we found out an article from Nick Cordy, who is the expert on compensatory picks, is nearly perfect every single year. But the Bills and 49ers got fourth round comp picks instead of thirds. And everybody's like, well, why? Like, nobody really knew. And Brandon Beane, the Bills general manager, even said, we got screwed. And what happened was when players have restructured contracts and you add void years have salaries on them. And that was something like with Kirk Cousins. They had $40 million salaries. So technically, Vikings couldn't go over $40 million a year. So when you have those salaries, apparently the NFL treats them as new contracts. Therefore, those restructured contracts with void years go up in the point system that they have. And then those other two end up going down. And what we just don't know. And with Grenard's playing time, then snap share is a part of this formula, potentially going up significantly. He could play 90% of snaps this year. I don't think anybody would be surprised. That could immediately bump him into that third round pick conversation. So the Vikings may not have even had the ability to. What would you rather have, a seventh round comp pick or a potential starting cornerback? I think everybody would choose the starting cornerback. And even so, the starting cornerback is better than a third round comp pick. You know why? That third round comp pick could be Shaq Griffin, who was a third round pick. So I think the idea of having the comp picks is really nice. The idea of having assets to be able to get a potential Danielle Hunter is great theoretically, but you have to weigh it against the players that you're bringing in as well. If the Vikings have a starting cornerback and he plays well, I don't think it matters that they lost the third round comp pick, even though the Vikings didn't think they were losing one at all because of how they're projecting Grenard's playing time to end up kind of canceling out. So get off his back. You wouldn't have done this with Rick Spielman. Just get off Kwesi.
We're looking for something to talk about, man.
Understand
okay? We're looking for something to talk about.
Understand the process before you go in on him. That's what I'm asking here.
I think you just gave me a new merch idea. Instead of trust the process, maybe it's understand the process. I like where your head's at there, Tyler. Judd?
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm going to keep mine short and sweet, and it's this. Roger Goodell, look at me right now. Look me in the eye because I'm looking at you, and I'm going to tell you this. Your offseason is damn near perfect. Like, you have perfected it, but I need you to make one fix, and that's this. I need you to release on the NFL calendar and have a date for the schedule release. This whole thing of, we thought it was going to be actually released today, but now there's some issues with that Christmas Day game. So it's going to be next week. It might be Wednesday. It might be Thursday. It used to be April. Now it's May after the draft, which I actually like because it creates its own small place, but I think it's a really fun day. But I want a date. It can't be that hard. Just pick a date and have it done by that date. And then at 7:00 that night, hit the publish button, go on your NFL network, ESPN, break it down, which I love. I think is really fun. The order of the games is so important that it doesn't bother me a bit that the opponents are known, but you do everything else so well. Let's have a scheduled date that is set way ahead of time so we all know what day we can just sort of put our evening on hold so we can see, for instance, in our case, what the Vikings schedule is going to be. I don't think I'm asking that much.
Yeah, but Judd, in this case, we need to figure out how we're going to hijack everybody's lives and make some poor teams play 3 games in 11 days and play on Christmas Day.
Well,
so give them time. If they're gonna ruin everybody's lives, they need time to get this right.
I love the Christmas games. It's on a Wednesday this year.
I do, not in the middle of the dang week.
No, I do. I love it. I love it. You know what? Family. I can be done with family by noon.
Family be damned.
Put that football in the air. Let's get the Knicks playing the Hawks at 11 Central. No, let's go.
Oh, your Wolves are going to play on Christmas Day, too. That could complicate matters if the Vikings are playing on Christmas Day.
And they actually might play a Christmas Day game at Target Center for the first time because they've played on Christmas Day before. They've never played here before. But anyway,
see, now you got me going. By the way, when the Wolves played on Christmas Day, that doesn't count because they tipped off at like 11 p.m. Central Time on Christmas Day. That doesn't count.
Or something, or the Mavs one time. Anyway, Tyler, what I want stability. I want to know what day we're going to get the schedule.
You know why that there's no schedule release? It's because things get really fluid and all the logistics that go behind it, so they don't want to not have it ready.
Right.
And we're seeing that this year. Yeah,
but just pick mid-May. On a Thursday. If you don't have it done by then, fire people.
I'm sure they already have. They're making massive cutbacks, including getting rid of Total Access, which has been their flagship show.
Why are they doing that?
But you know what the wild thing is? I think it was Andrew Marchand who's up on all of the broadcast stuff.
Yep.
Said that ESPN might be buying a share of the network.
Oh, they're trying to sell it to them.
And then that would end up essentially being ESPN being co-opted, just like NFL Network. You don't want state-run media running the media for the league. You want outsiders.
I don't know what you're talking about. J.J. McCarthy's the greatest quarterback I've ever seen.
State-run media, Judd. I can't believe it. I thought you were one of us.
Skull Vikings. Oh, I'm sorry. All right, we are done. Check out, again, Tyler. He does great work at the Sporting News and also his First and Skull channel. For Ross, I'm Judd. See you later.